The Pest and Predator podcast is brought to you by Field Heroes, powered by the Western Grains Research Foundation. Visit fieldheroes.ca to learn how beneficial insects can benefit your farm. Welcome to the Pest and Predator podcast, brought to you by Field Heroes, powered by Western Grains Research Foundation. Visit fieldheroes.ca to learn how beneficial insects can benefit your farm. Today's guest on the Pest and Predator podcast is Haley Catton. She is a research scientist for cereal crop entomology with the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, based out of Lethbridge, Alberta. Dr. Catton, how are you doing today?
Hi, Sean. I'm doing well.
Yeah, great to chat with you. I'm looking forward to today's discussion about the T. Julius. So let's talk about beneficials, a little bit higher level to start off. Talk about some of the research that you have been doing in your career on the importance of beneficials.
Oh, sure. So any crop field is like an ecosystem, right? It is an ecosystem, and you have a whole bunch, like hundreds of different species of insects in there, and a few of them are pests. So we pay a lot of attention to the pests, right? But there's a lot of other insects in there that are doing services for producers that are providing value, and those services could be eating pests, for example. It could be recycling nutrients. Pollinators, of course, are included in beneficial insects as well. The work that I focus on is what we call biological pest control. So those are the insects and arthropods that are eating pest insects. So sometimes they are controlling pest populations without us even knowing it. And that's providing a lot of value. So the work that I do is, my vision is to try to put some level of economic value on the services these beneficials are providing, so that when a producer has a decision to make about whether to, say, spray a field or not, they can understand the value of the services they might be eliminating by mistake, right? By spraying out a pest, you also spray out the beneficials. So if we could get some more information to know how much these things are worth, I think it will help producers make more informed decisions on pest control.
Well, today we're going to talk about the surveillance and release of T. Julius, which is a non-chemical means of managing cereal leaf beetle. I admitted to you before we started recording here that I'll admit I had never heard of the T. Julius before. What is it?
Yeah, T. Julius is a wasp. So the T stands for a longer name, Tetrostachys julius. And so we call it T. Julius for short because it rolls off the tongue. And it is a tiny wasp. Like, I'm talking in its adult form, it's like 2 or 3 millimeters long. And it lays its eggs inside the larva of a pest called cereal leaf beetle. So the T. Julius wasp is a beneficial wasp because it kills the pest, cereal leaf beetle. That's what it is. So obviously it allows us to not have to spray for the cereal leaf beetle. What does that save us from? Yeah, so cereal leaf beetle is a foliage-feeding insect, so that would require foliar spray. And, as soon as when you spray foliar spray, you're spraying everything that's in that field, right? Including beneficial insects. So if we can get an insect like T. Julius to kill the pest, like kind of surgically remove it basically from the field, then we don't have to disrupt all those other beneficial insects that are doing their work. Not to mention the farmer saves time and money not having to apply the chemical. So when you said you hadn't heard of T. Julius, it makes me smile because a lot of times beneficials are kind of like the unpaid army, or the kind of just doing their thing behind the scenes, especially teeny tiny little beneficials like this. So that's why a lot of us entomologists on the prairies are working to raise awareness about these little critters that are providing huge services in terms of pest control.
So how did we make this discovery? Like, this all sounds great and it makes sense, and I'm totally into the power of this, but how was this discovery made that the T. Julius, if released, could control cereal leaf beetle?
Oh, yeah. Well, among entomologists, we know that just about every insect out there has its own enemy, its own parasitoid that hunts it down and kills it to some level. So T. Julius itself is a pest insect from Europe, so it's from Eurasia, and it's been in North America in the eastern part since the 1960s, and then it moved through the southern U.S., and it made it recently to Alberta in 2005. It was the first time it was found here. So the T. Julius pest followed it up in its natural distribution to Alberta. And then once cereal leaf beetle was found here, then my colleague Dr. Hector Carcamo, he's another field crop entomologist, he started rearing these T. Julius wasps and multiplying them, and then sending them to producers with cereal leaf beetles in their fields. So the wasp followed the beetle, and then we have amplified it in numbers and sent it around the prairies.
I just imagine him mailing them in like cardboard boxes, and here's your shipment of the T. Julius almost.
Yeah, I know, little yogurt containers with ice packs.
That's funny.
Picture the smallest little, it's just so small. It just blows my mind, and everyone else's, so I show it how small these little wasps are and how much good work they do for being so small.
Yeah. Do we have an idea on, does it serve any other purposes, the T. Julius, or what else does it do in the wild?
There's been host specificity tests that Hector conducted with colleagues, and they tested to see if T. Julius would parasitize or attack other beetles that are related to cereal leaf beetle, and they couldn't find anything. So as far as we know, this is a specialist insect which is going in, surgically removing cereal leaf beetles from fields. And the numbers of the wasps follow the numbers of the cereal leaf beetles, right? So the more beetles you have, the more food you have for the wasps. So the wasp population expands. And then as cereal leaf beetle declines in numbers, so do the wasps.
Interesting. So it lays it lays its eggs inside a baby cereal leaf beetle and kills it. So is that egg some sort of poison to it? How does that work?
Okay, so we're talking the larval stage of a cereal leaf beetle. It looks kind of like a slug on the leaves of a cereal. So the cereal leaf beetle larva carries its own poop on its back as a fecal backpack, we call it. And so the larvae don't move very much. Like I said, they kind of look like slugs. So these wasps can detect those larvae. The wasps are flying around. They must smell them somehow. And then the female goes up, lands on the larva's back, and pumps eggs inside of it. So now from that point on, that larva is doomed. So those eggs will hatch inside the larva and slowly eat out the inner contents of that larva. So it doesn't die right away. The larva will keep eating, but those wasps are growing inside of it, and eventually they will kill the cereal leaf beetle larva. It will burst open, and new wasps will come out.
So
amazing, isn't it?
It is super cool. It is very, very, very neat, and it's something that when growers go to their field, they necessarily don't think of what's actually happening sometimes inside the canopy. It is such an amazing thing, and as you mentioned today, it's super difficult to find cereal leaf beetles because of this beneficial. Do we have any idea on what the economic value to growers has been because of that?
Right. So you brought up a really important point, is that I'm trying to study this system, and it's really, really hard to find cereal leaf beetles now. And we think it's because of this parasitoid. So what I've been trying to do the past few years is ask producers to send in samples of larvae in their fields to me, and then we take it to the lab and we cut those larvae open, and we can see if there's baby wasps inside the larva. So that's how we monitor the parasitism levels in a field. And we've done as many as we can, and some fields have almost no parasitism, and some have over 80%. That means 80% of those larvae are being killed by T. Julius. So what that allows us to say is to a producer is, if you see these cereal leaf beetle larvae, rather than the first instinct to be, I have to spray these out, if we can say, wait a minute, you might already have something killing these. That'll save you money. So in terms of economic benefit, you can probably think of it as all that money saved by not spraying for that particular pest insect, cereal leaf beetle.
So if If the cereal leaf beetle populations are so down and finding them is very, very rare, is there a chance that if they do spike up again, we're going to have to reintroduce the T. Julius into the population?
Yeah, that's a classic problem in biological control. If an agent works too well, then it kills itself out. But wherever we are finding cereal leaf beetles larvae in the past 2 years, we are finding T. Julius with it. So I think both of those insects are maintaining low-level populations based on our surveys. The T. Julius wasp obviously needs a cereal leaf beetle, but it's in balance. It appears to be in balance with it, that it's not killing its only host too much.
Dr. Catton, thanks a lot for joining us here on the Pest and Predator podcast. Some great insight. I think we all learned a lot about the T. Julius and the fantastic, huge impact it has had on prairie grain growers. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Sean. And if anyone has samples, if you're walking around your field in June and you see these little slug-like things in your leaves, or you're getting fecal streaks from these insects on your plants, please get in touch with me. We'd love to have samples so that we can dissect them and we can tell you if you have T. Julius in your fields already.
Pest and Predator podcast is brought to you by Field Heroes, powered by the Western Grains Research Foundation. Visit fieldheroes.ca to learn how beneficial insects can benefit your farm.